You're now tuned into the fourth season of Atypical Voices in Our Time, the official podcast of Chemistry Productions, a media education company. Let's get it started.
That's AVIOT.
I've been so busy recording AVIOT Sunday Brew that we do it every Sundays, which is a live show where we interact with audience members out there, that I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing another live, but I'm not. I'm pre-recording this on my own so I can edit it, put the sound effects, and then give you all a good podcast episode. But welcome back to the AVIOT podcast. I'm your gracious host, Jay Stokes. It's nice to be back, everyone. And today I have some topics, gonna get more political here. I know I try not to stray in that direction just because a lot of what's going on in American politics, it seems that there's no end in sight to it.
Nope.
However, these topics right here I felt were good to bring up. First, I have to go back to my conversation where I was speaking about Laverne Cox. So Laverne Cox is a Black transgender woman who has been in the news because Laverne dated and continued to stay in a relationship with, for a little while, a MAGA cop, white man. And Laverne was on live just talking about his blonde hair, blue eyes, and it seemed that Laverne was praising this individual, even though that individual is voting against Laverne's best interest and actively supports a system that acts against Laverne's best interest and the best interests of transgender Black women, Black people, transgender people in general. So Ole Olorin, she is, I guess, a political commentator. She is a social media creator, creates content on social media. She has her own platform called Ole and Friends, and she knows Laverne Cox personally. So Ole Olorin, she gathered a panel together of transgender individuals. There was, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, trans Black women on this panel, and then there was one trans Black man, I believe. Deshaun was the trans Black man. I don't know if they're gender non-binary, if they go by they, them, but yeah, so they had a person named Deshaun, and I just remember Deshaun and another trans Black woman named Hope. And I really liked listening to their perspectives because I felt they were the only people on the panel that actually held Laverne accountable. Other than that, I felt everybody else was pretty much kissing the ring. They're pretty much just bigging up Laverne and trying not to step on Laverne's toes. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I got the number of people right. So it was an interesting panel where they were speaking to Laverne Cox about the implications of dating this MAGA white man and how Laverne was speaking about this MAGA person, how it came across. And what I found interesting was some of the people that were more in Laverne Cox's corner, they were talking about how, well, Black men out there that date and sleep with trans women, they're not much better. They also take the lives of trans individuals. And it seemed like they were equating the two, equating Black men to this MAGA white cop, this MAGA man who is white and happens to be a cop. And to my response to that is, you can say what you want. I understand that the transgender community goes through their own share of troubles, their own problems, especially when it comes to dating and relationships, because you have a lot of individuals out there who do not believe that trans women should be existing or transgender people should be existing at all. I'm not of that belief. I believe that transgender individuals, they should be allowed to live a life of peace and happiness. That's my stance, okay?
Yes.
They should be allowed to live a life of peace and happiness. All the intricacies when it comes to sports, when it comes to the bathroom, all that stuff, we can work on that. But transgender individuals should not be harmed, and they should be able to have jobs. That is my stance. However, let's make this clear. You cannot equate Black men to white men on any level, because white men belong to a system that supports white supremacy, at least in America. And also, white men in America have the power to enact laws that harm transgender individuals. Black men as a collective do not have the power to enact laws that harm transgender individuals. So while you have Black men out there who do harm transgender individuals, which is true, you cannot compare the two.
No.
You cannot. And then on top of this, the person Laverne Cox was dating was a cop.
Oh, no.
White cops have a different level of freedoms that even black cops have. So while we have police officers, they are in a system where oftentimes they harm black individuals. And we can get into that in a whole nother episode. Still, sorry, my nose is stuffy. Still, white cops are different. They're at a different level. We have seen this. We have seen this with Muhammad Noor, who harmed a white woman. I think he took her life by accident. I think she startled him and then he took her life. He was held accountable. He was jailed. He wasn't given the ability to plead his case and given the ability to escape jail time from taking the life of this woman. Now, the woman whose life he took was a white woman. But still, juxtapose that to Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin out here, we saw it on camera. The man took the life of a black individual. And we had everybody out here who had the protest and march and worldwide protests that were happening over the pandemic. And Derek Chauvin didn't get a life sentence. We saw how he took the life of George Floyd. We saw how George Floyd pleaded for people to help him, called out to his mother. And yet, there was still this fear that Derek Chauvin was going to get off and that he wouldn't be held accountable. He didn't get life in prison. He should have gotten life in prison because, as far as I'm concerned, that was first-degree murder. Come on. But, yeah, Laverne Cox, those people on that panel with Olayemi Olorin, you cannot compare what black men do to trans individuals to what white men do to trans individuals, what white people do to trans individuals, because white people largely make up these laws in this country.
That's correct.
So there's that. Speaking of lawmakers, I wanted to get into this next story right here, talking about the current U.S. president and his beef with Charlamagne Tha God. Charlamagne Tha God is a radio host who has recently become more of a figure that speaks on social commentary, that provides social commentary, and he speaks on political shows now. People know him more for being involved with the hip hop community. And it really does grind my gears that a lot of outlets use Charlamagne Tha God to speak on political issues that involve black people. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have a voice. What I'm saying is when we have political issues and we're thinking about high level topics, I believe that we should have people who are more well-versed in politics to represent black individuals or to speak on behalf of the black collective to speak on these matters. Someone like an Angela Rye, someone like a Jasmine Crockett, someone like maybe even an Al Green. Not Al Green the singer, Al Green the politician, Democrat. But it reminds me of what Malcolm X once said in terms of black celebrities being used as the voices of black people when it comes to political issues.
I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
That should not be the case. That to me is wrong. Anyways, Charlamagne Tha God appeared on My View with Laura Trump. Laura Trump is the current president's daughter-in-law, and this is a show on, I believe, the Fox news station. And so Laura Trump was asking Charlamagne how he felt about the current president's second term so far. Charlamagne responded by saying he wouldn't give it a good rating simply because the least of us are being impacted by the worst. He said that even though he falls into a higher tax bracket that's not affected by a lot of the laws that are being passed by this current presidential administration, he still feels for those who are less fortunate, who are getting Medicare and Medicaid taken away from them, who are being harmed by a lot of these policies, especially with immigration. He also stated that he felt because of how the U.S. president and those who support him are handling the Epstein files, because it was shown that the current U.S. president is named in the Epstein files. Jeffrey Epstein was an individual who messed with kids. That is a horrible thing. And Trump was named in those files, and people are trying to figure out whether or not he had some involvement messing with kids too. You know what I mean when I say messing with kids. And so Charlamagne was saying that because the current president's MAGA base, Make America Great Again base, doesn't like that stuff, that they might have a coup and they might try to take over the Republican Party. They might try to go against the U.S. president because they're disgusted by what's happening. So he said a lot of harsh truths about the current president. So the U.S. president goes on his app, Truth Social, and I'm trying to read it for you right now. He said, he wrote, "The very wonderful and talented Lord Trump, who shows a big rating success, put racist sleazebag Charlamagne Tha God," I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Why he's allowed to use the word God when describing himself, can anyone imagine if the uproar there would be? If I use that nickname, he's a low IQ individual. He has no idea what words are coming out of his mouth. He knows nothing about me or what I've done, just like ending 5 wars, including a 31-year bloodbath between the Republic of the Congo and Rwanda. So yeah, he just goes on and on and on, brings Joe Biden into the mix, saying how Joe Biden has also caused problems, just totally deflecting from what Charlamagne said. Charlamagne comes back, I believe it was today, on The Breakfast Club. So The Breakfast Club is a show that Charlamagne was known for. And he said that, no, the current president did not end any wars in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and that is a fact. And that the president needs to do a better job. I'll put the clip in.
Now, the personal insults, I don't care. He called me a sleazebag. I looked up the definition of sleazebag. Says it's a disgusting or despicable person. Depending on who you ask, that may apply to me. Okay, I personally prefer friendly neighborhood a-hole. Okay, he said I'm a low IQ individual. I don't know. I've never taken an IQ test. He said I have no idea what words are coming out of my mouth. Absolutely true. Okay, I've been surprising myself my whole life, like, damn, I actually said that? Now, let's get to your claims. He said, I don't know anything about him ending 5 wars. Mr. President, nobody knew that because it's not true. All right, there is zero evidence, nothing credible whatsoever that says President Trump played any role in ending the ongoing, keyword, ongoing conflict in the Eastern DRC or in Rwanda. Okay, America has not brokered any major peace deal between the DRC and Rwanda during Trump's second term. And wiping out Iran's nuclear capabilities, you did pull off a significant strike, but it didn't eliminate Iran's nuclear capabilities. Saying you wiped it out is an overstatement because according to reports, no enrichment facility was destroyed and Iran's nuclear threat is still very active, and some experts argue it's more dangerous now due to a lack of international oversight and the increased beef with Israel and the USA. Now, you also claim the borders were closed. Not closed, but you have tightened immigration policies and increased enforcement. You have definitely made the border harder to cross, but saying it's closed is false and ignores everyone coming over seeking legal asylum. By the way, I want border security. I just want you to keep your promise of deporting illegals and criminals. But since Homeland Security started to work to deport more people, okay, immigrants with legal status or no criminal history are being detained and deported too. That's not right. Okay, your family is always in fear.
Whose family you talking about?
Okay, all right, listen. My fellow Americans, listen. My fellow Americans, we are in a strange time right now. A time we have never seen because authoritarian strategy is being used against anyone who speaks out against this administration.
My thing is, there are so many things to be worried about in this country. We have the job markets not looking too hot. We have people that are upset with how the U.S. is dealing with Palestine or their involvement with Israel in that conflict with Palestine. We have people who are being deported And the way that it's being done is so unethical. And the current US president decides instead to focus on a radio host.
Wow.
Even if he appeared on your daughter-in-law's show on Fox News, why? Why are you focusing on a radio host? To me, this makes no sense. Well, it does make sense if you're just trying to take the heat off of you and you want people to focus on something else rather than the poor job that you're doing as president.
Damn.
I'm just saying. There's a lot of deflections and distractions that this current president and his administration often use in order to keep people from looking or staying the course when it comes to holding them accountable. However you can do that. I really don't know how you can hold people accountable that are already in office, but holding them accountable for the actions that they are doing or the decisions that they're making that are not conducive to a well-functioning country. A lot of these distractions are just throwing us off. And it's really unfortunate. Speaking of throwing people off, Stephen A. Smith recently got into it with the former First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama.
What?
And I felt that his response to comments that Michelle Obama has recently made about him were meant to throw people off. And let's get into it. Basically, what happened was Michelle Obama was meeting with a roundtable of individuals. I should get the actual name of the event. I believe it was on her and her brother's podcast. Listen, y'all, I don't have all my facts today. So I am looking up some stuff in real time. All right. And basically, she said that Stephen A. Smith and ESPN, they're kind of functioning like the Real Housewives franchise.
If I listen to ESPN for an hour, it's like watching the Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the same drama and they're yelling at each other and they don't get along. I mean, Stephen A. Smith, he's just like every other
he'd
talk
be a
show
great
host.
Real Housewife.
He would be.
Right.
Right?
It would be amazing.
So that's why I'm like, what's the difference? It's just, it's just sociological drama.
And if you know the Real Housewives franchise, they're always arguing. They're always in some mess. She compared ESPN and Stephen A. to the Real Housewives of Atlanta specifically, because the Real Housewives franchise, they have different areas. Housewives of Atlanta, Housewives of Potomac. And so I believe it's true. Stephen A. Smith took exception to this, and he decided on his own show, the Stephen A. Smith Show, that he was going to clap back at Michelle Obama. And I knew this was going to be the case because Stephen A. Smith, he's never one to allow people to just make a remark about him, people who are on a high pedestal, without him saying something back.
If you're listening to the AVIOT podcast on a streaming service, make sure to leave a rating and a review so we can grow our platform.
That's just how he is. To me, Stephen A. Smith is all press is good press. Even if the press isn't the greatest thing ever, it's still good press because his name is being mentioned, and he feels that his name being mentioned drives better ratings and more money. So the name of the Michelle Obama podcast where she made these remarks is, in my opinion, with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson, her brother. And the episode is Follow the Fun with Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers. So that was the episode where she made these comments about ESPN and Stephen A. Smith being like the Real Housewives franchise. Stephen A. Smith decides to go on his podcast and he just derails the conversation. He first talks about how he loves Michelle Obama, thinks that she should have run for president. And then, in an act that has nothing to do with this conversation at all, he starts talking about how he didn't like when Michelle Obama said voting for the current U.S. president meant that you were voting against the interest of women and girls.
I'm still a bit salty at you. When you were campaigning on behalf of the former Vice President Kamala Harris, who I'll get into in a minute, by the way, and you were giving a speech, I believe it was in Detroit, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure. It was in the middle of the day. It was carried live. You said a vote for Trump was a vote against you and a vote against y'all as women. I want to state for the record, I took major offense to that. Black men don't just love our black women. We revere y'all. You've practically raised most of us. Think about the most hardcore individual you can find who is a black man from the streets of America. If there is one person who can walk up to him and slap him silly and get away with it, it's his mama or his grandma. It's who we are. And to say what you said back then, I think to this day is the only thing that I didn't like that you said. I didn't appreciate it. Because there's so many things that go into deciding where your vote is going to go.
To me, that is the case. If you voted for this U.S. president, you are voting against the interests of women and girls because the platform that this U.S. president runs on negatively impacts women and girls. There is no way you can get around that. There is no way you can get around that. And Stephen A. Smith decided to talk about that and saying how a lot of men, they want to prioritize other things like the economy. And my thing is, the last time this president was in office, the economy was not doing good.
Nope.
So what are you talking about, Stephen A? You claim that you voted for Kamala Harris, but to me, it seems that you did not vote for Kamala Harris the way you're talking, because you're talking like a Republican, or you're talking like someone who supports MAGA. Like, come on, man. What does that have to do with what Michelle Obama said? Then Stephen A. Smith goes on to talk about how The Real Housewives is scripted and how ESPN is not scripted. ESPN is very much scripted. You come in with topics. You come in with topics that you want to talk about, and then you act as a character in order to get the audience engaged. The reason why I stopped messing with ESPN is because it was too much. Y'all stopped focusing on the sports and y'all started focusing more on the headlines. Y'all started focusing more on the salacious stories, ways to call people out. That's what you started doing. So, no. You got to do better than that, man. But in the eyes of Stephen A. Oh, and then he goes on to talk about the Obama administration and how people don't like President Barack Obama. That had nothing to do with what Michelle Obama said. Michelle Obama said, and you proved her point, that ESPN is more about the ratings, and it's turned into a lot of this arguing back and forth. It's like The Real Housewives. You proved her point. So I don't support the Stephen A. Smith show. I don't support ESPN because they really do the most. Speaking of ESPN, so on my last, I don't know, I think I did this in a live where I talked about Shannon Sharpe being let go from ESPN due to his dealings with a younger woman and the woman accusing him of sexually assaulting her. Yes, so I talked about this, I think, on a past live stream. If not, then I did talk about it. I know I talked about it in a video that I made for social media, for the Chemistry Productions social media accounts. I did talk about it there. So anyways, in my video that I talked about Shannon Sharpe, two things I mentioned. First is that though he was being accused of sexual assault by this woman, they were in a consensual relationship. She accused him of sexually assaulting her on 2 separate occasions in 2 separate years. And I just found that story to be a little interesting. I said that I felt that I didn't know how to feel about that story, but I did say that Shannon's dealings with her were inappropriate, especially since he allegedly met her when she was 19 and he was in his 50s. He's still in his 50s now. So an individual underneath the post that I made on behalf of the Chemistry Productions on social media, they stated, you don't settle for that amount because Shannon Sharpe settled, I believe, a $50 million lawsuit. If there's no evidence, let's use our brains for real. Sexual assault is notoriously hard to prove. He did that. So this individual felt that Shannon Sharpe did sexually assault his former lover, who is significantly younger than him. My thing is, because this woman is white and Shannon Sharpe is black, I always am cautious about those situations. I'm not saying that a black man can't sexually assault a white woman, but what I am saying is that a lot of black men throughout history and still in present day have been falsely accused of sexual assault, rape by white women. And that has negatively affected the lives of many black men, and many black men have lost their lives because of that.
Yes.
And that's why I always tell brothers to really be cautious with who you date and who you decide to lay down with. I always say that because you never know what people's motives are. You don't know if they're just using you for sex and then they're going to throw you under the bus when they're done using you. You don't know if they're using you for the perks if you are a celebrity. So you got to really be careful. So I'm just saying I'm very cautious when it comes to the dealings between white women and black men, because history does not look favorably on those interactions. I'm just saying that is a fact. That's not saying that, oh, black men, you shouldn't be dating white women, right? I'm not telling y'all that. But what I'm saying is, historically speaking, when black men date white women, a lot of times it does not end well. It doesn't. Or when black men are even in the vicinity of white women, it might not end well. White women have falsely accused black men of so many crimes. And because white women are valued in American society, unfortunately, black men are not valued. Unfortunately, that could really ruin the lives of black men and black families. So there's that. Another thing I said in this video that I put on social media is that Shannon Sharpe, I hope he gets help. I hope he gets a mentor. Someone commented underneath that video saying, mentor, Shannon is almost 60. He is supposed to be a mentor at this stage. I get it. Yeah, that is true. That is totally true. The thing is, though, I do have some hope that people like Shannon can be redeemed. I believe there are certain people that are irredeemable, right? Like a Candace Owens. I think Candace Owens is irredeemable. I don't think she's changing. You can't trust her at this point. But people like Shannon Sharpe, even Nicki Minaj, who I feel Nicki Minaj acts all sort of crazy. I do think she has a substance use problem. That alleged, right? I don't want to get in trouble, but I do think that there's something wrong. There's something wrong with Nicki. Something's going on there. I think that she is redeemable as well. I don't think that she has gone totally over the cliff. But people like Candace Owens, Jason Whitlock, Clarence Thomas, they're irredeemable in my opinion. So as a person who believes that Shannon Sharpe is somewhat redeemable, even though he has not acted appropriately at all, I don't think he has been a good representation of the Black collective at all. I want him to get help. And even though he is pushing 60, I still think that he can change. I still think that he can have a mentor in his corner. I know he looks up to his older brother. Hopefully his older brother's in his ear. I still think that he can have people that can help him out. And even a mentor, I don't think necessarily has to be older. A mentor just needs to be wiser, because you got a lot of old dummies out here. So that's how I feel about that situation. Hopefully he does get help. If not, that's on him. I said I don't feel sorry for him, though, because he's old enough to know better. He shouldn't be dealing with a 19-year-old in his 50s. He shouldn't. That's not. So that's that. With that being said, let's get into updates. So, like I said, I think it was my last live stream with AVIOT Sunday Brew, I have a new computer. Thank you very much to my beautiful, wonderful black chocolate wife for helping me out with that situation. I tried to record a podcast episode last week, and I was using the program that I use, and my computer was just pausing. I had said it on past podcast episodes that the computer that I use is not the greatest. The old one, it wasn't the greatest. It was always pausing on me. It was really an enemy to progress. But with this computer right here, the new computer that I have, I am doing wonders. Yay! I didn't want to get it right away just because financially I felt it wasn't a smart purchase. But my wife was saying sometimes you got to spend in order to make. You got to spend money in order to make money. And I'm hoping that the materials, the information I'm putting out via this platform, the AVIOT podcast, our parent company, Chemistry Productions, is truly going to be lucrative, and that we can build community with people speaking on different issues in media, critiquing media, and so on. So that's the major update right there. Make sure to follow Chemistry Productions, K3MISTRY, on all social media platforms that you can find us on. Make sure to follow the AVIOT podcast on streaming services near you. Make sure to listen to our episodes, support us. We definitely would appreciate it. And so let's get into the topic of the day.
And now for a quick commercial break.
Hey guys, as you can hear, we are unapologetic in our opinions. We may be politically incorrect or possibly wrong, but don't knock us for being ourselves and saying what many are too afraid to admit out loud. Anyways, if you have any thoughts or questions about our show, email us at chemistryproductions@gmail.com. That's K3MISTRY productions@gmail.com. We'll be sure to address whatever you have to say.
For the topic of the day, I want to speak about the situation that I thought was weird, but it's happened before. Lil Tay, I believe, is a rapper, and she was very known for gaining popularity at the age of 9. Lil Tay's real name is Tay Tien, I think. And so I remember my wife was telling me a story about her that she was in several headlines throughout the years because there was a false statement about her passing away. And I believe there were some issues regarding her and her parents. It was really odd. But yeah, I just know that there was that issue of her passing away through that false story, and then she is a rapper. Anyways, she recently turned 18. And she launched an OnlyFans account reportedly and allegedly made $1 million within a few hours.
Wow.
There are people online saying that men are weird for subscribing to this OnlyFans, and they were preying on her, waiting for her to turn 18 because that's the legal age of consent that you can sleep with people in the United States. I remember this happened before with an individual by the name of Bad Baby or Bad Baby, something like that. And she had turned 18 and she had a whole bunch of subscribers and made a whole bunch of money. I think either a million or millions within a few hours of her starting this OnlyFans. So you had, I'm going to say probably majority, I can make a strong assumption that majority men subscribe to this OnlyFans, but I'm not putting it past women to have done it as well. It is odd because to me, that means you've been looking at this young individual sexually for a long period of time. And you were waiting until they were legally able to express their sexuality for you to engage in masturbation, for you to pleasure yourself to this individual, look at them in a sexual manner and not feel guilty about it. That is odd. That is very odd, especially if you grew up knowing this individual who came on the scene reportedly at 9 years old. That is weirdo behavior. It definitely is. And I understand that attraction is odd. Attraction is nuanced. But someone just turning 18 and starting at OnlyFans and them getting allegedly $1 million immediately, that's a problem. I believe that people that young shouldn't be starting OnlyFans accounts. The brain is not fully developed yet.
No.
I believe that Lil Tay making reportedly $1 million off starting an OnlyFans account immediately meant that, or it could inspire other individuals, whether they be boys or girls, to also start OnlyFans accounts when they are of age. And I believe in order to discourage that behavior, people like that shouldn't get any play. If they start an OnlyFans account, no one pay attention to it. And what are the parents in all of this? What are the parents teaching their kids? I understand we live in a sex positive, free the nipple, free the genitalia society. But there comes a point where we really have to chill and we become oversexed.
That's correct.
I believe that parents have to do a better job of not only teaching their kids responsibly about sexual activities and sexual behaviors, but also there needs to be something about just attraction in general and sexual discipline. Just because someone is of age or legal to sleep with doesn't mean you do it if you are significantly older. Now, if someone's 21 and they want to mess with an 18-year-old, hey, that's whatever. That's legal and they're closer in age. But when we hit 30s, 40s, 50s, that's when it becomes a problem. My thing is just in general, wait till the brain is developed. And I think that happens at 25 before we really get into the politics of dating younger as an older individual. And I believe that's like 25, 26 years old. But I've always stood on the side of what am I doing messing with 18, 19, 20-year-old? I've lived. I'm in my mid-30s right now. And what are we going to talk about? There's a maturity gap there. And I remember I was talking to an associate of mine, and she was saying that those who are older who choose to sleep with younger individuals, maybe they're just not mature enough. Maybe they're at the level that the younger individual is at mentally, and that's why they can make those relationships work, even if it's just sexually. That's a possibility. I want to look more into that subject, though. Older individuals being attracted to teenagers, how that comes about, and what we could possibly do to curb that or to teach people to be better. Because Lil Tay getting reportedly $1 million by starting on OnlyFans as soon as she turned 18, that is problematic. That's not cool at all. No. With that being said, thank you all for listening to this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to have another one out this week. And with that being said, peace.
So go a little something like this. That's AVIOT.